I have a cold open. I went to Tech Trek, which is an event that happens in the other university town that's near the university town we live in, where they have this, they have a whole tech week where there are these events and workshops and talks, and it's kind of a networking thing, kind of a schmoozing thing. But then they have this Tech Trek where you go and there's all these booths with exhibitors, and it occurred to me that a trade show is a great place for random reality. Because for one thing, a lot of people have little raffle wheels on their table to interest people, and then you like roll for a piece of swag or whatever. And then there's like so much going on that you can just roll for where you want to go. Like even if you're going to go to all of them, you could like roll for, well, which one I'm going to go to first, or if there's like two things at the same time that you like would like both of them, roll for which one to go to. So that's always a good exercise to, when you find yourself in one of those different environments. Those are sometimes the best opportunities to, because you feel more free to get a little bit jiggy with your life choices. So anyhow, this is Your Aleatoric Reality, the show that has a different format every time because it's random. We're going to have a topic, a Q&A, a debate, a review, steal a format, which is a new category, which we're... I guess we should call parody instead of... Well, when I said parody...
It's not parody.
Damon said, what are we going to be making fun of them? Well, no, we're just stealing their format. But we're going to basically pick a podcast that we like or is relatively well known and kind of steal their format. I don't know. Hope we don't get sued. Or play a game.
To be frank, we plan on doing a lot of episodes of this.
It's way more than you want to listen to.
It's going to be an interesting concept to keep the action going.
I have no doubt that we are going to have no problem constantly coming up with new random things.
Right. No, I agree with you on that. The question is, will anyone other than the two of us care? I mean, the whole time we've been friends,
the right people
it's
will
followed
care.
Pretty much this format without microphones. So...
This is a concept I got from MST3K, Mystery Science Theater 3000, where it was Joel who was talking about when they were first coming up with the concept of the show, and they were doing some really obscure references. Like I remember there was one episode where there was a character that looked kind of like Jimmy Carl Black, and when he ran onto the screen, Joel's like, "Look, it's Jimmy Carl Black from The Mothers of Invention," and maybe 5% of the audience got that reference. But he said when they were in early talks about how are we going to make this appealing to the masses, they were like, well, it doesn't have to appeal to everyone. The right people will get it.
Or you just up the frequency of jokes, and if 4 out of 5 land,
there you go. So it's quantity.
For your special member.
MST3K's philosophy is quantity, not quality.
It absolutely is.
I'm gonna roll for what we're doing, and it was actually.
What do you think about the Patton Oswalt version, though?
I haven't seen it.
It's not great. I mean, I like Patton, but it's just not the same thing. It's not that it's bad. It's not that it's bad.
I haven't seen it. We didn't get reviews, so we can't talk about this anymore. We got topic, and I have a list of 6 topics. And just for full transparency, we will probably get to all of these topics, because what we do is we have a list of 6 topics. What?
It's not up to us.
It is up to us which items we put on the list.
Oh, yeah, but that list can get longer than 6.
The list
dice all day.
The point is we don't throw away the unrolled options. The unrolled options roll over. Because for some of these we have prepared. I know it seems like we're completely unprepared. For some of these we have prepared. So if we have a list of 6, for instance, items, and we roll for one of them, that doesn't mean the other 5 are never going to be talked about again.
Right.
We roll them over and eventually we'll probably get to them. So I'm going to roll for a topic without further ado. And it is...
You didn't ask me if I had any news.
Tell me your news.
It's not big news. I'm just saying... took Vivian, my daughter, to the restaurant this Sunday. We usually have a little Sunday daddy-daughter dinner or whatever, brunch, lunch, whatever.
Are you sure you want to disclose her name to the public?
I don't care. What are they going to do?
I don't know. Dox her? Don't dox Vivian.
I don't know. I don't have the fear.
Good.
Anyway, and I decided that I was going to try to involve her. I mean, I've talked about it before, obviously, but I decided that I was going to make it a special thing, and one of the ways to do that is with a gift.
Mm-hmm.
So before we left for the restaurant that had been predetermined, because she's been asking to go there for a while, I'm not going to plug them, but
sure,
it's right there.
There's no point to plugging that.
Yeah.
I didn't even want to say what city we live in at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah, I don't know why you're weird about that. It doesn't...
Because we should be global, baby. Wherever you are, you're listening to us there,
right
so we're there
you.
too. We're stalking you. But we won't dox you.
No,
Promise.
We're not bad people. We're not here to hurt anybody. Anyway, so before we left, I gave her a set of mini dice. Which is, first of all, something I should have done probably about 2 months ago, because when Vivian was a child, and yes, I'm comfortable sharing this, she would steal my dice all the time. She loved playing with my dice. And she would pretend like she didn't know where they were, where they went, and she would actually hide them from me so that she could keep them for herself. And so, like, all of my best dice, some of them I still don't know where they are, and she doesn't either.
Because she stashed them somewhere.
As a small child.
Right. At least it's not a $100 bill.
Yeah.
My daughter lost a $100 bill somewhere in the house years ago, and we still haven't found it.
Wow. Interesting. So anyway, when we started doing this podcast, when we started talking about this podcast, I gathered all of my dice, which were spread throughout my home, and probably anyway. And when I was gathering them, I went to her and I shook her down, and I said, "Give me all of my dice back. If you know where any of my dice are, give them back now." And she was very gracious and said, "Yes, okay." And I let her keep some of them because they were pretty redundant. But I pooled all my very unique dice for a big flex. But anyway, I had taken several dice away from her, even though they belonged to me. I still felt kind of bad about it because I love her and she's my daughter.
You're a good dad.
Yeah, thank you. And so I thought, well, I'll give her a set of mini dice, which is cool, and I should have done that in trade for... But fuck that. No, I should take back my things and then give her a present later. I think I did.
You shouldn't just let her jack your shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. My kids are always taking my dice, and it's just because they want a prize. Like, they don't even do anything with them. They don't use them. They don't play games. They don't roll them. They're just like, "Oh, can I have one?" Or they'll just like go in my dice bin and like take them. But then they're just like in their desk drawer. Like,
yeah,
man, you can borrow dice if you're gonna use them. You can have dice if you're gonna use them. If you're just like stick them in a drawer, what's the point of that?
Dice are little treasures to a child, though.
They're little treasures to me too.
Well, no, but yeah,
but I use them.
Get it. I don't know.
Anyhow,
so anyway, I reclaimed my dice, and then I gave her a small set, and then she said, "Well, what's this for?" I said, "I just want to give you a gift, And then I said, "Well, hold on, this is one I picked for you, but let me show you the one I picked for me, and you can pick which one you want." And she went with what I was right. I picked the right one for her. Or she just liked that I picked it for her. I'm not sure which. But so anyway, we got to the restaurant. She's like, "What's this for?" I said, "Well, I've been talking about this podcast that Misha and I've been working on. And is it okay to say your name? Someone might dox you."
It is okay to say my name. Please don't dox me.
Anyway, when we got,
I don't really know what doxing is.
It's when you release somebody's like social security number and address and all that stuff so that people can fuck with them.
Please don't do that.
No, it's a horrible
That's
thing to do to
horrible. Why would
anybody.
you do that to someone?
Because they're female and play video games.
That's rude. It's rude as hell, man.
It's one of the reasons. But anyway, I digress. That's Gamergate. So I said, well, first of all, I took back all of the dice that you had in hiding, and I felt a little bad about it because I feel like you need to have dice in order to be a successful human. So, here's all the dice, the basic set of dice that you need. And, once I start making dice, of course you're going to get a customized set, at least spread over many holidays and birthdays and Christmases and stuff like that. But anyway, so we got to the restaurant and we did the menu thing. And at first she was kind of resistant.
But you made her?
Nope. I've never made her do anything. But anyway, she might disagree with that, but
I'm sure you have like strong encouragements for certain behaviors and not others.
She's not. I don't think she's ever even been punished, to be honest.
Wild.
Other than like a timeout, but no beatings.
Well, nobody should beat their children.
I don't know.
Nobody should beat their children, Damon.
I don't think it's good either, but it seems to have been more effective.
I mean, it says in the Bible you should hit your children.
I'm not pro it. I'm
not pro Bible either.
No, I'm pro Bible or
or hitting children.
Which actually brings me up another thing for the news that I'll remind me I have a second topic.
Okay.
So anyway, we got to the restaurant and she's like, "Well, so how does this whole dice rolling thing work?" And I was like, "Oh, well, if you are in a situation where," I said, "you can either enter into a situation where it's fun to roll for things, or if you're in a situation where you feel like you need some assistance in making a decision because you're having difficulty making a decision, it's also a tool for that." And I should mention my daughter's on the spectrum. Mm-hmm. So this is something that she actually lit up about. Like, oh.
Way to get out of analysis paralysis.
Right, exactly. And so, anyway, she ended up... It was funny because when we got there, before we got there, she'd been asking me to go to this restaurant for a while, and she told me exactly what she wanted. Like, she had a predetermined meal that she wanted when she got there.
Oh, she had something in mind, and you still got her to roll for it.
She had specifically asked to go to this restaurant to get the onion rings and the hamburger that she likes.
Uh-huh.
And then... I don't know if it was because I gave her the dice or because I've been talking about this quite a lot, because I share my life with her and things I'm working on, I'm passionate about. And, or if she just felt like one of the things with our weekend dining excursions is we either try foods that we've never, it's always been a bit of adventure.
Uh-huh.
It started off as, she always wanted to eat Taco Bell, and I don't really care to go to Taco Bell. Plus, also, that's not something that somebody should think is a treat.
Right.
Well, I won't go down that road. But anyway, it was like, hey, daddy-daughter time, let's go and try food you've never had before. Mm-hmm. And you have to try. We're going to make good, educated decisions about what we order, and you have to at least try things that seem icky or different or weird or whatever. Mm-hmm. So it's always been presented that way since she was 3 years old.
Yeah.
And for a long time, you know what her favorite food was?
What?
Octopus sushi.
Crazy.
It was her absolute favorite, which I get the bubblegum kind of mystique of it, but it's not very flavorful. But, I mean, there was a time we went to a sushi bar and I spent $150.
On octopus sushi.
Not just on trying different things.
Trying different things. Yeah.
Yeah, like maybe it wasn't 150. It was a lot though. It was way more than I would usually ever spend on myself.
A daddy-daughter date.
Yeah, and I was so stuffed. I mean, we ate so much food.
Nice.
She ate more than me. She always does. I'm the fat one. But anyway, so we looked at the menu, and that restaurant just happened to have. She came up very easily with 5 options that she was extremely interested in. And I think she might have been leaning into the concept a little bit. But it was like, so tell me about this dice thing again. Because I can't pick a menu item. Well, she'd picked a menu item before we got there. I knew that. It was going to be a problem.
She was more just intrigued by the idea of it.
Yeah, but I played along. And so she picked, and she said, well, there's only 5 things that I want that I'm interested in, and one of them I'm not so sure on. And I said, well, that you have 2 options. You can double items up that you favor, and you can make this as complicated as you want. If you want to roll a d20 and you want to make an array where 5 are cheeseburger and 7 are meatloaf, and
yeah,
I'm here for that.
I will break in real quick and say, like, when you do that, when you skew the odds to that much of a degree and you show that big of a preference, you're kind of setting yourself up for, like, I really want this thing, but then if you roll off of that, it can be a little bit more disappointing. So just take that, like, I'm not going to tell you how to do your odds, but if you try to over advantage one choice because that's what you really secretly want, maybe you're not really maybe you shouldn't really roll on that particular choice.
You know what? She was all in on the concept, and she really understood it. And I said, you can weigh things. If you're like, I'm like 80% cheeseburger. I'm like, first of all, my immediate reaction to you with the theme of this adventure we've been having is don't get the cheeseburger.
Yeah, because that's not stretching outside your comfort zone at all.
Right. Like,
It's
try
not an
something
adventure.
new.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, there's nothing on that menu that's too extraordinaire.
Right.
You know. But there was one option that was way outside of her usual comfort zone, and that was shrimp angel hair pasta with like a garlic aioli sauce or something. I can't remember what it was, which sounds delicious, but it's not really typically a kid food, but she does love shrimp. So I was like, put it on the list once. I said, if you got that, do you think you would like eating that? And she's like, well, yeah, it sounds like it's yummy, but it's not my first pick. And I said, well, if you always go with your first pick, do you ever try your second pick?
Good one.
So we put together an array, and it was a D10. And she rolled, and she got a cheeseburger, like she originally planned on ordering.
There you go.
But
Crazy
that's
Fortuna.
That's the cool thing, and that's why I love this so much. I genuinely feel like when I'm dedicated to a thing, that's the one I get. Except for when I don't, and then it's really interesting, and then it's always fortuitous.
It always keeps you guessing.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever done a dice roll that was a super turd.
Well, you got to curate your choices.
No, but sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes you're like, I think this is interesting. This sounds good. I might like this. And then you roll it, and then you get it, and it sucks.
It can happen.
Yeah. I can't think of a time that's ever happened to me.
Huh. I mean, I've done a lot of this, and like one of my catchphrases is random reality can make anything better.
Yeah.
Because you get outside of your comfort zone. You get outside of your ruts and your habits, and you experience more than you would have otherwise.
I mean, this is a form of NFT. Like this is a way to break patterns. Like that's the. I mean, if we really wanted to break this down and analyze, why is this enjoyable? Why is this endorphin-y? Like that's the key. Is like it's exciting to not be in patterns that we're comfortable, and it's extremely healthy. And I think it's actually extremely beneficial as a person to observe the patterns that we find that are not necessarily positive or negative. They're just the things we do because we're ritual-based people, and break those. And when you do, it's an endorphin rush. I mean, it's a difference. It's a minor one,
but it can be very exciting at the same time.
And it's just, I mean, have fun with your life, like.
Yeah.
So anyway, we had a great brunch together.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You have indoctrinated a child into random reality. I'm proud of you.
No, I just planted seeds.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I mean, I like to say things extravagantly.
Yes. No.
Gambling. So, gambling is ancient.
I told a story about it was it last week? When I told Yeah.
About St. Louis.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, when you lost $100 on the roulette wheel.
I am not a gambler.
Except with experience.
I am not a monetary gambler.
Not a monetary gambler. Gambling dates back at least to the Paleolithic period. That's Stone Age caveman days. Before written history. Dice have been found in Mesopotamia as far back as 3000 BCE. That's before Common Era. Well, they found six-sided dice from Mesopotamia 5,000 years ago. The original.
I intentionally didn't write these facts that you're reciting back right now because I knew you would do it.
That's our dynamic, dude.
Yeah, it's a good time. I intentionally looked for what are facts that Misha will not pick up on.
I was just going to say, I have nothing but facts and you have nothing but tangents and humor.
No,
and facts.
I do like facts a lot.
Yeah, sure you do. The original dice were astrogally, which are like goat
Teeth.
Joint bones.
Yeah.
Like wrist and ankle bones.
But they were marked.
But those were tetrahedrons. Those are four-siders. The original ones, they were bones, were four-siders.
But they scribed them.
But yeah, and then they found it easy to make out of clay or carve a stone or wood or whatever into a cube and have 6 choices instead of 4.
But also, what I found interesting and I didn't have the time to research was the line in the sand between divination and scrying and gambling.
That, as far as I've been able to find out, is kind of lost to the mists of history. Because when we're talking about random reality, prior to whenever the Flipism episode of Donald Duck comic came out, prior to the 40s, or prior to the 20th century for sure, you were talking about gambling or divination.
Correct.
That's it. And they were both pretty prevalent for about the past 4,000 years.
I mean, nobody's gambling over tea leaves. But they probably would if they could.
Well, here's the thing. If you're counting it only as monetary gambling. If you're counting experiential gambling, and I was going to wait until the divination episode to talk about this, but it's come up now, so I'll talk about it.
Okay.
If you're talking about experiential gambling, if you have a tea, you drink your tea, and then the reader looks at the leaves and tells you
you're a werewolf,
what's going to happen or what you should do, and you alter your life choices because of that, how is that not random reality, right?
How is that not gambling?
So, right, experiential gambling. Or you shuffle the cards, and you're in 17th century Italy, and there's this mysterious woman shuffling these cards. She lays them out and tells you what you need to watch out for, and you alter your course of action based on what those cards said that were randomly shuffled.
Question.
That's gambling with experience.
Where is the line in the sand? And if you don't know this, maybe we could pick it up at a different time. But
sure.
Between playing cards and tarot decks.
Yeah, so there's so much misinformation out there, primarily promulgated by like new agey tarot people who just want to believe something because it sounds cool and not because they verified it, who will tell you, oh yes, playing cards are descendants of the tarot cards, and tarot cards are ancient, and like playing cards are modern. That's the opposite.
I was just going to say,
playing cards are way, 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 way older than tarot cards.
Isn't the tarot deck an invention of playing card companies?
They existed before there were companies.
No, but I'm saying like people who were selling cards were like, hey, what if we sold more cards?
Well, tarot was originally a card game. It was a specialized deck for a trick-taking game called Tarachi, which is where the name tarot comes from.
Interesting.
This is all stuff that should be for the divination episode. But whatever, it came up. Fortuna decided that we were going to talk about it, so we'll
talk about it again then with more information.
We sure will. So anyhow, so tarot was originally a card game, and it dates back to Renaissance Italy, 1600s, I think. But late 1400s.
Okay, wait, hold on. So before you go too far on this path, my question is not this. It's, was one a precursor to the other, or did they both? And it sounds like the answer is they've both existed in different forms at different times. But the playing card deck is the precursor to the tarot deck.
Yes, because playing cards originated in ancient China, and they were little slips of paper or cardboard with different numbers of symbols printed on them.
What's up with the Chinese inventing everything cool?
Because they're one of the oldest civilizations on Earth.
I mean, they came up with spaghetti.
They came up with pizza. They came up with gunpowder. They came up with fireworks.
They definitely, yes.
There was a lot of smart cookies back in ancient China, let me tell you.
And fortune cookies.
Americans invented fortune cookies.
I know. Also Chinese food.
Yeah. Playing cards are way earlier. Tarot cards is a specialized version of, because tarot, like playing cards weren't standardized until probably the 1800s anyway. There were, like, if you were in France, you had a French playing card deck, it would probably be different than a German deck or, various other areas.
So now, were those variations just on what the suits were, or was it also the number of cards? Because a tarot deck has 13.
78.
No. Just in the numbers.
Oh, 13 per suit.
Correct.
14 per suit.
Yes. That's
poker
sorry,
deck
that's what
has modern playing card deck has 13 per suit.
There's
variation. There's variation in how many court cards there are. the value of ace is variable.
The value of ace is variable in a standard poker deck.
What the suits are varies. So there was a lot of variation. Just like spelling wasn't standardized until a couple hundred years ago.
Sorry, I know we're talking about gambling, but this is the stuff that me. I love minutia. I love understanding the origin of things. I love understanding how things work more than. So if we have any topic we talk about. The weeds for me are going to be like, if you want to talk about the Civil War, we're going to talk about the technology of guns for 90% of that episode.
Yeah, so in China, gambling houses were widespread in the first millennium BCE. A lot of them were for betting on like animal combat. They would put two animals in the ring. You bet on which one's going to come out alive.
It's not, just betting. Gambling is not games of chance. It's anything.
Yeah, well, but depending on how strict your definition of the word gambling, usually in the stricter sense of gambling, it can't be like a game of skill or strategy. It has to be a random outcome. But the idea with like a cockfight, for instance, is that there's no way to know in advance which cock is going to win. Maybe
you're talking about chickens.
I'm talking about chickens, male chickens.
Gotcha. I'm with you.
Cockfighting.
Yep.
That's what they call it.
Duotang.
Anyhow, I realize that I dropped the thread on Terra, but we'll talk about that in the divination episode.
Yeah, no, I think we explored it enough.
Playing cards were first. Playing cards appeared in China 12 or 1300 years ago, 9th century.
Pai Gao.
And then there were gambling card games in Japan back to the 14th century.
In China, because I have some overlapping notes here. Most of the gambling in China that wasn't or that wasn't fighting animals was either variations on what we would modernly consider lotto games or numbers games and dominoes. I didn't do enough research to see if they made a correlation between dominoes and
Mahjong.
Mahjong, thank you.
I don't know that Mahjong is related to dominoes in any way other than it's on a tile.
Right, but I don't know that the article that I was referencing here made that distinction.
Oh, I see.
That's what I'm saying.
Because you could certainly bet on Mahjong. You can,
Mahjong is very fucking complicated.
You can bet. It is. Well, the core
in the ways that you can win.
The core of Mahjong is pretty similar to Rummy. Mm-hmm. But then you have all the special hands.
Right.
And that's where everybody has to have memorized and agree, like there's a house set of, because depending on what book you look at, there could be 20 special hands or maybe there's 50 special hands.
Ironically, I know a lot about this from a video game called Fight Like a Dragon.
I know a lot of this because I used to play Mahjong.
No, I did it in a video game, and there were different Mahjong houses around town where you could go and gamble to make money, but they all had separate rules.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's not necessarily separate rules. It's just different. Because like in a regular rummy hand is where you would collect like 3 dots in a sequence, 3 bamboos, and like all 4 winds or all 4 dragons or something like that would be like a standard hand. But then where there would be these special ones where it's like 2 of each.
Well, also the plays off of other people's plays is what was unique to that.
Oh yeah.
So, this is how my initial experience with Mahjong went. Oh, it's like Jim Rummy. Why the fuck did you just win?
Well, in the version of Mahjong that I played, there's no playing off of other people's plays.
Oh, see, that's
because
where it gets
you reveal it is like Jin because you reveal your whole hand at the end. Like nobody knows what you have until you're done.
No, the plays off other people's plays is where it gets.
Which is why Mahjong means I win, and that's why it's called that because like nobody knows what's going on until somebody says, "Hey, I win," and it's like a surprise.
Yeah, but when they win and 80% of it is off of other people's hands, that's when it gets really weird.
But it's not off of other people's hands. You can't play off of
you play off of the plays. So if the
discards, you mean?
No, the plays.
There aren't plays. You don't play it. Well, at least in the version I played.
Yeah.
You just play your whole hand at the end.
I think it's a robust game with many rule sets.
Well, certainly, because China's a big place, and before rules were standardized, it was played differently everywhere you went.
Yeah. They can't even agree on a dialect.
Right? Anyhow, poker is the most popular gambling game in the United States, especially if you count Texas Hold'em, which I don't.
Boring.
I do not understand why that game is so popular.
It's it's the closest thing you can get with a playing card deck to a slot machine.
It's like the dumbed down-est version of poker that anybody can just, like, your grandma can learn it, your niece can learn it, all the family can get together and play Texas Hold'em because there's no thought involved.
Yeah, and also the reason I dislike it is I've gone to poker nights before where we played Texas Hold'em, and when I've played straight poker or variations on straight poker with, a lot of wilds and stuff to keep it pretty interesting, so it's not just become high card,
right?
Because you're not getting a good hand every time. I mean, that's just not the case.
I prefer 7-card stud for that reason.
Fair, very fair. Although the draws get weird in that. I don't understand all the betting rules, and it takes a long time to.
That to me also, that's what's fun about it, because like the Yarrow stock method of I Ching, which we'll talk about on the divination episode, you have you get your 2 down cards, you get your up card, and then there's a round of betting, and so rather than stud poker's like deal out 5 cards, bet, raise, call, okay, it's over.
Yeah.
In 7-card, you have this whole procedure. It's like,
but with Hold'em, it's extended.
Did I say Hold'em?
No.
7-card.
Right.
I said 7-card, right?
So it's interesting that one would think that 7-card would be the shortest duration, but they add all those extra betting and up rules.
Yeah. Well, Texas Hold'em is kind of like a 7-card stud-like game, except that most of your cards aren't yours; they're everybody's cards.
Right.
In 7-card, everybody gets their own 7 cards.
Well, and what I was going to say is what I didn't like, and it might have just been the people I was playing with. I understand if your experience varies and stuff. My personal experience, and I don't like gambling, was that we do like a $20 pot. You get chips, and then it always got to a point when it was like 5-card. I've never done a 7-card, but with 5-card, it was a lot more interesting and chess-like. Whereas when it was Texas Hold'em, it just became a dick measuring contest, and it really had nothing. It had everything to do with bluffing and nothing to do with cards anymore. And it was more about the psychology of playing poker and just how much of an asshole you were.
Well, bluffing is useless if everybody is trying to bluff all the time.
Exactly.
It's stupid.
Exactly.
Play liar's dice if you want a bluffing game.
Like, literally, the last time I did that, I put all my chips in on garbage. I was like, fine, you guys want to fucking play this bluff game and this psychological dick measuring contest? I'm all in. Yeah. And they're like, you haven't looked at your cards yet. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah, but because of movies, everyone's heard of bluffing and tells, and so they think, it's all about bluffing and tells, and I gotta figure out what people's tells are, and I gotta try to bluff all the time. If you're trying to bluff all the time, you suck.
Nobody wants to be Malkovich.
You suck at poker if you're trying to bluff all the time.
What was that movie? That was actually a really good movie. Malkovich and John Cusack.
I'm not sure.
But he played a Russian who had a poker game, and his tell was he ate Oreos when he was cocky and had a good hand. It was really kind of very dumb because anybody would have picked up on that.
Like the MASH episode where Winchester whistles when he has nothing.
Or the MASH episode where they went on longer than the actual war.
Right. It was from Mad Magazine. Right. Fighting for 12 years in a 3-year war or something like that. The first known casino was called the Ridotto, which sounds like it should be Italian for ridiculous. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the Ridotto opened in 1638 in Venice. So Italy, the birthplace of casinos. Queen Elizabeth chartered a lottery in 1569. Here's an interesting factoid. It's not a factoid. Here's me being pedantic again. Factoid is a term coined by, I think it was Norman Mailer, that...
Was he a whaler? No, he used to be a sailor. It's a Guar reference.
Herman Melville. You're thinking of Herman
No,
Melville.
I'm thinking of Guar. It's literally the lyrics to
I don't know any
Vlad
Guar
the Impaler.
lyrics. To me, lyrics is not the point of Guar. Odious Urungus spraying goo on the crowd through his phallus is the point of Guar.
Did I ever show you pictures of me and my friend Nate when we went to the Comic-Con? I dressed up as Guar was there, and we got to dress up in their outfits.
That's awesome.
And I was Beefcake the Mighty.
Nice.
I got pictures of me as Beefcake, and those costumes smelled really bad.
I bet.
But it was worth it.
I would have wanted to be Sleazy P. Martini.
No, it was just Odorous and Beefcake were the only things they had available, which was enough for me.
I would have been Odorous.
Yeah, you would have.
Yeah. I am odorous, many people say. All
gore.
of the major world religions seem to agree that gambling is destructive and sinful.
I noticed that and took
And
no notes on it.
Many of them explicitly forbid gambling.
Except for Christianity.
Well,
Christianity was like, as long as the odds are fair, I guess it's okay.
Depends on the flavor of Christianity, but many versions of Christianity consider, while they don't outright ban it, it's not like a commandment or anything. Gambling is frowned upon by Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism.
It's explicitly by Buddhism. I was surprised at how fervently.
Most forms of Christianity, Islam, gambling is haram in Islam, and even the Baha'i faith, which I thought the Baha'i faith of like modern major world religions,
I honestly didn't know what that was.
Baha'is are pretty chill. Oh, have you not been to the Baha'i temple in Chicago?
I've literally...
Or it's the north of Chicago. It's in
I don't know
Evansville.
anything about it.
So we're not going to talk a lot about Baha'i faith. But I love their there are Baha'i meeting houses in most major cities, but their thing is
what's the origin? Where's the country? Like, where's it from?
Iran or Iraq? I forget which, but somewhere in the Middle East.
Is it a subsect or is it totally independent?
It's so Baha'u'llah was their prophet. I said we weren't going to talk about it. Here we are talking about it.
Fuck it.
That's how we roll. Baha'u'llah was a prophet who basically his thing was all the major religions have good intentions. All religions come from a good place and they're all striving for the same thing. We should focus more on unity than our specific sectual differences. Not sexual. Sectarian is the word.
No.
Differences. But the cool thing is that there are meeting houses in most cities, but there's only one temple per continent. Per continent. So the Baha'i temple, there are meeting houses everywhere, but
so
the Baha'i
micro-Mecca.
temple for North America is north of Chicago, and all of them are 9-sided, but the architecture is unique to each continent.
Why 9-sided?
I don't know. 9 is somehow a sacred number in Baha'i, I guess.
It's a good one.
But it's my favorite number. But all of the buildings, so there's this huge, it looks like it should be a Jedi temple. It's this like towering building. We should go there. We should also go to King Spa Sauna, which is my favorite indoor place on earth. But you probably don't like saunas.
Why?
Do you like saunas?
I mean, do you have to be naked?
No, you're not allowed to be naked at King Spa. Okay. It's co-ed.
Why wouldn't I like a sauna?
I don't know. A lot of people I talk to are just like, ew, why would you do that? I don't want to be hot.
Well, how dare you fucking subject me to your other people?
I apologize. I genuinely apologize from the bottom of my heart.
Your descendants?
On behalf of me and my descendants in perpetuity.
It's a very Japanese apology.
It's actually, I'm riffing on Kevin Kline in A Fish Called Wanda.
Oh, yeah. God, I love that movie.
It's a good movie. All right, so types of gambling, types of games that you can gamble on. Dice is the oldest, and we have craps, which is a version of Hazard. Hazard is the precursor in which you choose like which numbers mean different things. Like I forget exactly the details, but you can choose like I want to go for 6 or I want to go for 7. In which case,
so you declare what winning means, and then you roll against that.
Yeah, but basically you're choosing your odds, and it was before probabilities were understood mathematically. So craps.
What year was this?
1600s, 1400s maybe.
Well, I would say that. I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to argue math, but I'm pretty sure that probability was understood at that point.
It wasn't until Pascal did the math in 1700s, I think.
So they understood a rhomboid before they understood probability?
I don't have a master's degree in mathematics.
No. I mean, I'm not trying to attack you. It's a legitimate question. Like that would be actually a very interesting mathematical construct that we as a people did not even consider probability before we started talking about potentially sacred geometry and I mean Plato had the Platonic solids, and I mean those are all BC concepts. So I would assume that if we were dealing with geometry and trigonometry and algebraic equations, we would probably get probability way before that. But probability seems simple, but it's a specific application of mathematics, which may not have occurred to anybody until they've been gambling too much.
Hazard. Hazard is mentioned in the Canterbury Tales.
Okay.
It's as old as the 14th century or older. And the rules are a little bit convoluted, kind of like Baccarat, which I don't want to talk about, but we probably will.
No, we're not going to because I discarded it from my notes. It was too much topic.
We've already talked about James Bond too much on this show.
Well, yeah, it had less to do with him and more to do with a Behind the Bastards episode. I really appreciate it. I'm not going to lie.
So anyhow, it basically in Hazard, you choose your winning condition, which changes which numbers are bad, but they didn't know the specific mathematics of the probabilities. So craps is just, well, the first investigations of probability mathematics was in the 1560s by Girolamo Cardano, and it wasn't published until 100 years later. And then correspondence between Fermat and Pascal, which was in the mid-1600s, is when they kind of started to really investigate the mathematical methods of determining probabilities. So for hundreds of years, people played Hazard without understanding the specific probabilities. Craps is Hazard with the optimal odds. In Hazard, you get to there's options that change the probabilities, but it had been unknown specifically which one was optimal. And when the probability numbers were known and the math had been done, craps is exactly the game of Hazard, except that the optimal odds have already been chosen for you instead of you being given a choice.
They're like, we read that article too, and that's all you can do anymore because we know that's what you're going to pick and think you're clever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There you go.
No, that makes sense.
That's Hazard and craps. That's dice. That's the first game I've talked about. Where'd my fucking notes go? Cards. So dice came out first. Mm-hmm. Then we had cards, and we have, of course, the most popular games being poker and blackjack. We also have Baccarat.
I like
which some
blackjack.
people like to say Baccarat.
Baccarat, I don't understand, and we had some research time before the podcast, and I wasted a lot of mine on remembering that there was a Behind the Bastards episode that talked about some card game, and I can't remember the name of it, that the gambling king of London had pursued, and it was really interesting, and it's a great episode if you ever want to listen to it. It's not ours. So I spent way too much time on that, and then I basically, it's actually hilarious because so far you have covered every single point that I thought was interesting and important that I intentionally did not take notes on. And I took notes. All of my notes are about, which I think is extremely interesting, and we can get into at any point, about the law of recovery.
I know nothing about the law of recovery. Enlighten me.
So, this started when I saw in my research the word aleatory.
Uh-huh.
And an aleatory contract is a contract where an uncertain event determines the party's rights and obligations.
An aleatory being related to the Latin alia, meaning die, right? Dice.
Right. So, for example, gambling, wagering, or betting typically use aleatory contracts. Additionally, another very common type of aleatory contract is an insurance policy.
I saw that one too, and I sidestepped it because I thought it was too in the weeds. But the idea
that was a fucking magnet for me.
The idea that the law needs to specifically distinguish between gambling and insurance because insurance is a form of gambling.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's no line. Like, people talk about the fine line between... No, this says, no, there's no line. And that's fine. I'm fine with that. I just wish I wasn't legally required to gamble.
Yes, insurance is a form of gambling.
Yes.
This is what we learned today.
So the term was a classification developed in later medieval Roman law to cover all contracts whose fulfillment depended on chance, including gambling, insurance, speculative investment, and life annuities. Mm-hmm. They rolled that all together.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely truth. I mean,
it's crazy because how mind-blowing it is, because when you think about it, well, yes, insurance is 100% gambling because you have no idea what's going to happen, and depending on what happens, you get a payout or you don't.
And also the house always wins.
Right?
Many modern forms of derivatives and options may in some cases be considered aleatory contracts. For example, the French Civil Code contains a chapter on aleatory contracts with specific provisions for gaming, gambling, and life annuities. Which leads us to asset recovery.
Uh-huh.
So if you have a law based on gambling, which is what we just talked about, Which admittedly, this is a path I went down because of the word is the one that we use in the name of this podcast. But that's great. It's another example of randomness finding interesting things. So, asset recovery. Under common law, particularly English law, a gambling contract may not give a casino bona fide purchaser status. Okay, I'll explain what this means in a minute. Permitting the recovery of stolen funds in some situations. So, well, let me finish reading and then I'll summarize.
Yeah, break it down later.
Yeah. So, Limpkin Gorman versus Karpalanan, whatever the fuck this is, where a solicitor used stolen funds to gamble at a casino. So, I rob a bank.
Uh-huh.
I then immediately go to the casino and launder my money. Does the state have a right to recoup those funds when they're in the possession of the house? So I lose every single cent I stole from the bank. I'm still on the hook for robbing the bank. But can the state take that money, or is that money now bona fide in possession of the house?
Well, what does the law say about that? Like, if you spent it at Walmart, can they take it back from Walmart?
Yes, they
can.
Yes.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you put it in the collection plate at church, they can take it from the church?
I don't know.
Why is church treated differently under the law than Walmart?
That's definitely gambling. So anyway, the House of Lords overruled the High Court's previous verdict, advocating that the casino return the stolen funds lest those subject to any change of position defense. Meaning, if the guy won, that's not their problem. But anything they collected from him, all of his losses, were the property of the state.
Huh.
Yeah. Yes, this is the weeds, but
yeah,
this is some interesting weeds.
Totally.
I think, to me, I love minutia. Educating.
Well, it's like, then are they talking about like the like non-fungible dollars that he lost, or is it like the net win or loss?
I don't know, but what I would assume is, and I don't know what provisions they had to claim this, because I don't know if they did serialized bills at that time, or how they would demarcate this. It was probably something pretty crude, like, hey, here's the deal. He stole $1,000, obviously probably more, but he gambled in your house and he lost $1,500, or he won $1,500, or what, they would use their balance sheet to determine how much money had changed hands and how much the casino owned them or owed them. Yeah. It was my interpretation of this, but it's bullshit. It's total bullshit. Especially if there was no identification. Like, what if I rob a bank and I put all that money in the sewers and then went to the casino and gambled with my own money? Is the happenstance of me just having robbed a bank enough for the state to claim that the money I was gambling with was theirs?
Right, that's why I was bringing up like the non-fungible idea, because is it the dollar bills or is it the amount that we're talking about?
Right.
That gets so weedy.
Exactly, because it's you'd have to think of each dollar or each whatever it was, pound, or if it was identifiable and serialized, which I doubt it was, right? Which is why this gets so fucking weird. Because if I was the casino, I'd be like, prove that was your money.
Right.
You show me the receipt and I'll give you the money.
Yeah.
But prove this is your dog.
There weren't security cameras then.
No, exactly. And so it's like, what if he threw all the money in the sewer and hid it there, and then he just went to the casino, which he'd done every night up until that point.
Yeah, and then lost a bunch of money and then went and grabbed his money out of the sewer.
Yeah.
Are they going to take it from the casino instead of from him?
Yes.
And he still gets his money.
Exactly. That's bullshit. But that's why money is serialized. The most interesting, this is way off topic again, because this is apparently
what a surprise.
The episode where we're really off topic. I don't know what led us here.
Isn't that every episode?
No, but sometimes I'm a little more...
No, not 4. 4, you stayed very on topic on 4.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I'm in the mood, sometimes I'm in the lewd, I guess. I don't know.
And sometimes you're in the balloon.
I always start drinking at the same point, so it's not that.
Right.
Anyway, blah, 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 blah. So the casino returned the stolen funds less those subject to any change of position defense. U.S. law precedents are somewhat similar. for case law on recovery of gambling losses where the loser had stolen the funds. See rights of owner of stolen money as against one who won it in gambling transaction and thief. Anyway, an interesting question is what happens when the person trying to make recovery. Okay, that was an example of the state trying to reclaim money stolen from them. An interesting question is, what happens when the person trying to make recovery is the gambler's spouse? So, you're my wife, I emptied our savings account, I go down to the casino and blow it all on Baccarat, and then
the wife wants to come and get it from the casino.
And the money or property was lost with either the spouses or was community property. This is a minor plot point in a Perry Mason novel.
I didn't know there were Perry Mason novels.
Oh, they preceded the TV show. Oh, no. I did know that.
The TV show was made out of a series of novels.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, anyway, that's what I had on that. Go back to your thing. Sorry. I just found the legality and the minutia of that legality to be extremely interesting.
Totally. The one thing that we didn't go into was because all of these world religions have a very bad view of gambling, there became a lot of laws against gambling, particularly in the United States. Gambling was outlawed almost everywhere before Bugsy Siegel started in Las Vegas. It was illegal to gamble anywhere. And
you know what's an interesting side note?
What?
Not to interrupt you, but the history of pinball.
Was pinball used for gambling?
Pinball was considered gambling until I don't have the notes in front of me. This is from the recesses of my brain.
Uh-huh.
But there was a man who went to court and proved that pinball was a skill-based activity.
Oh.
By, just like, I'm going to repeat the same shot 14 times or whatever it was.
Which, if you're good, you can do.
Right. And he was. And it was a basic-ass game.
Yeah, well, I was going to say also depending on the machine. Because there were machines that I played that I could just, I'm going to keep, like Theater of Magic. I can keep hitting that box every time I want to.
But this is the 70s.
When you had those janky-ass,
KISS pinball machines.
Galactic Invader, poker. There was a poker pinball game. There's tying it back to the episode
there's
theme.
A lot of them. But anyway.
But it's in the poker one, you have literally 5 those little, I don't know what they're called in pinball, the little tabs that pop down when you hit them. There's 5 of those, which is your hand, and there's 2 bumpers, and that's it.
Well, one thing that's
original pinball games were so simple. It's
one
ridiculous.
thing that's really interesting is there was no differentiation between devices that were used for gambling and devices that were exclusively used for entertainment. You put a whatever it was, a nickel or whatever the hell it was at the time in a pinball machine, there's no chance of winning. You don't get anything back. Other than cred, right?
Right.
Or maybe
they were trying to call that gambling?
They were just saying these machines were illegal. Is my understanding of it.
Huh.
And a guy went to court and was like, dude, watch this. Bang, 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 But anyway, I always thought that was really interesting because what happened was my point being, the entertainment machines were exclusively used for gambling until they derived in, I think it wasn't until the 1920s when they had the first pinball machines that were purely for entertainment, and they were banned as fervently. I mean, of course we had a ban against alcohol at the same time. So, but yeah, that was anyway. Look it up.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, the whole laws against gambling, which were also, as you just mentioned, really popular around the time of Prohibition too, and that was those 2 factors were what gave rise to organized crime. Yeah, and it wasn't just alcohol. Gambling was just as much of a
kind of like the war
piece
on
of their
drugs.
income pie. Yeah, and so that's why we have state-run lotteries today, because the government couldn't stop underground gambling. No matter how hard it was illegal, they tried to stop it. People would always have a numbers game. People would always have a crap game.
A great illustration.
They couldn't stop
of that.
it. So what they did was they created a numbers game that had better odds than what the mob was doing, and so it just they couldn't you were better off going to buy a lottery ticket from the government because they have better odds. So they just stopped doing it. So the reason we have lotteries today is directly to prevent illegal gambling.
By providing the service as a public service.
Well, the final topic that I have is psychological biases and fallacies. And there are a number of biases and fallacies that affect gambling and participation in gambling, but the chief among these is the aptly named gambler's fallacy, and it most directly relates to the topic of randomness, which is ostensibly the topic of this show. The gambler's fallacy is the idea that because a certain random result has not shown up for a series of iterations, that it is more likely now. Like if you're going to see, on the roulette wheel, black came up 3 times in a row, that makes it much more likely that it's going to be red this time, and you bet on red. And then 50-50 chance black comes up and you lose your big bet that you thought was a sure thing. Gambler's fallacy exists because people are notoriously, in general, bad at simulating or predicting randomness. And we've talked about this a little bit. There was I tend to do better at this, I think, because I've studied randomness and probability a lot. But I saw a thing that was like, test your ability to simulate randomness with like heads or tails. And there was it was like a website where you could like have a text field that you would type in a series of H's and T's for heads and tails, and try to make it as random as possible. Do 100 of them and try to make it random. And then the algorithm would rate how random you actually were. And most people do very badly because they won't put ever like 6 heads in a row. They'll put like head, tail, head, tail, head, tail, maybe 3
They don't organize their metrics.
But if you flip a coin that many times, you're going to get series where you flip heads 6 times in a row. Similarly, there's an experiment where people look at like it's a square, it's like a field that has circles in it. And you're supposed to pick the one that is distributed randomly. And there's one that all of the dots are spaced out perfectly evenly. There's one that the dots are spaced out pretty much across the thing, but there's still like some places are closer together, some places are further away. And there's one that's like there's a couple of clusters and maybe 1 or 2 that aren't associated with a cluster. And people will generally pick the cluster one, thinking that, or actually, no, sorry. People will generally pick the middle one, thinking
that it's the middle.
That, this one is too evenly spaced, and this one is too clustered. It must be the middle one. But no, the clustered one is actually, like, randomness does produce clusters.
Correct.
And that is why people succumb to the gambler's fallacy, because they do not understand randomness, they do not understand probability, and they think, well, if black came up 3 or 4 times in a row on the roulette wheel, it's definitely going to be red this time.
You know who understands probability in the gambler's fallacy?
Who?
Casinos.
Oh, absolutely.
They milk the shit out of it.
Yeah.
One of the things I was going to go into, but I got bored with it, was well, no, it's interesting, but it's not interesting. So, in brief, slot machines is the absolute worst fucking odds you can possibly get in a casino. And the machines are legally fixed.
Well, because you see signs in casinos saying our slots pay out 98%. Like that's an advertising. Like some casinos only pay out 96%. We pay out 98%. That means all the money, basically the house is never going to go in the hole.
Right.
Of all the money that comes into slot machines, only 98% of it is going to go back in payouts. 2% is always going to be kept by the house. And if people are gambling and spending thousands or tens of thousands of dollars as a group in the casino per day, then the casino is making thousands of dollars on their slot
Also,
machines
that's a somewhat arbitrary
day.
statement, because 98% of what?
Of the take.
Are you sure?
That's what it's supposed to mean. And there is a gaming commission that inspects all the casinos. Of course, there's no bribery or corruption in that organization whatsoever.
No, those people are, well, anymore it's actually pretty incorruptible, because it's fucking corporations now who are just like, we don't need to be corrupt, we're pieces of shit.
I think that's probably the case, because like you said, it's all corporate. It's
Disney owes, anyway.
Yeah. Well, that's about all I have for this
I still say
piece.
That if you feel like gambling, recycle. It's the same experience, but you actually get paid out every time.
I had a guaranteed gambling win idea that I did. I used to do this for a while. That instead of buying a lottery ticket, take your dollar bill and put it in a jar. Like when you want to play the lottery, put $1 in the jar and roll 3 dice. If you get all 6s, you get to take everything in the jar. Most of the time, you will lose that lottery, but when you hit, you will get every dollar back.
Yeah. So let's end with this little story from my childhood.
Okay, we're supposed to end with a quote and a listener challenge.
Yes.
But, well, you want to do that first and then do your story?
No.
End?
Just let me end this topic.
Oh, okay, great. Let's do it.
With a little story from my childhood. So at about 12 years old, I would say approximately, it doesn't matter, adolescence, my grandmother was extremely excited because she'd won $500. This was in Pittsburgh, in Duquesne specifically. You know, the steel mill. You'd walk down the strip and it was bar, lottery, bar, lottery, bar, lottery, bar, lottery. So every day when I was at my grandparents' house, we would get up, we would walk down to the local lotto place, which was their primary. I say that because it was a convenience store, but the primary business was lotto. And they had a small video game arcade in the back where I could play Moon Rover or whatever the hell that was.
Yeah.
Or Defender, or
Was it Lunar Rover? Was it the thing with like 6 wheels?
Yeah, where the wheels are like doing the breakdancing wave. But so anyway, every day we'd go down there and my grandmother would excitedly pick her divinely whatever. I don't know what her modicum. I'd love to know what she had. Some methodology I was never akin to, but she definitely had some kind of divination technique for choosing her numbers, which is fascinating bullshit. Definitely a perfect example of what we were just talking about with the gambler's fallacy. But anyway, so we showed up for Easter or whatever because we lived in New York at the time. And we'd travel there for Easter, Christmas, Thanksgiving, all the big holidays. Back to where my dad's hometown. And one time we showed up and she said, "Oh, I bought a new couch. I won $500 on the lotto." She was all excited. I said, "How much did that cost?" And she said, "What?" I said, "Well, you won, but how many dollars did you spend to get that $500? And she literally just about disowned me right there on the spot.
Because she had probably spent thousands at that lottery.
I guarantee it was not in her favor.
Yeah.
And I said, "Why don't you just put $1 in a jar every day, and then when that jar gets full, you can buy a couch?" And she just didn't want to have. She didn't want to have anything to do with me.
Well, Ambrose Bierce, in his Devil's Dictionary, defined lottery as a tax on people who can't do math.
It's a tax on hope.
It's a sale of false hope.
Yes.
The lottery is selling you false hope. I do play the lottery.
Do you really?
Yeah. Okay, not every day or anything, but I do get a lottery ticket from time to time, only because I am worshiping Fortuna.
I don't even think that counts.
It does.
I don't know.
What is valid worship of Fortuna is between you and Fortuna.
It's
and
subjective.
No one else. It is completely subjective, yes. So, we have the big book of the Heretic's Handbook of Quotations, which I think we're going to have to mix it up. This is the 3rd time in a row we've used this, which is a great book.
I'm absolutely fine with using this every time forever.
It's a great book. I just don't. I want to. We have
either this or the Monster Manual.
I'll do that. The tenets of the secret masters of random demand exogenous choices.
All right, I tell you what. Here's what I will take as my challenge for next week. I will go through my library, and I will find, because I have many books with this quality. Mm-hmm. And I will try to choose some selection, and if you have some to add as well, but some selection for us to roll from and then to mix it up. But I mean, when I saw this book, just the table of contents alone it's a multiplicity of genius. It's topics and the selection process. There's a lot of shit in there that's fucking awesome.
Yeah. No, it's a great book. I love the book.
I mean, I understand that you're object to a single source, but
and I'm not saying we're not going to bring it back.
It's
I just
a
think we need to
compilation.
mix it up a little
Yeah,
bit. Yeah. Anyhow, before we do the quote, though, we need to do the listener challenge, which, given the topic of the episode, I think needs to be gambling. However, because gambling, may be illegal in your jurisdiction or may be prescribed by your religion, and we, like, liability-wise, we can't tell people to go out and gamble their money. If you're comfortable with gambling, maybe you've never been to a casino, but you're curious, you want to try it, just pick what, like, an amount of money that you would be comfortable, spending on some entertainment. Like, don't think of it as like, maybe I'll win. Put that dollar in a jar and roll every day until you win it back. Or I just now thought of this idea. You could do benevolent charitable gambling.
oh yeah, absolutely.
Where a combination, I was inspired by your idea of, like, there's this sporting event. I'm going to put $20 or whatever your amount that you're comfortable with.
I want the
$20
endorphin rush
in an envelope.
without the fucking treachery.
I'm going to put the money in an envelope, write down on the envelope what I think the outcome of the game or whatever you're betting on is going to be. And if you're wrong, you give that money to the charity of your choice.
Excellent.
And if you're right, you spend it on some indulgence. I'm going to buy myself a drink or a cookie or whatever you want to get. You either spend it selfishly on yourself, or if you lose, you give it to charity. And with that, we will read a quote out of the Heretic's Handbook. So I'm going to take a random number from random.org from 1 to 224, which is the number of pages in this book.
Get in touch with random.org.
Yeah, once we launch, I probably will. I got a 202, so I'm turning to page 202 here, and I'm going to roll. It's by Abraham Lincoln in a letter to Judge J. Wakefield. Yeah. My earlier views that the unsoundness of the Christian scheme of salvation and the human origin of the Scriptures have become clearer and stronger with advancing years, and I see no reason for thinking I shall ever change them. That is Abraham Lincoln.
Interesting.
He did not believe in Christian salvation or the human origin of Scriptures.
Well, all the founding fathers were deists.
That's what I've heard.
It's an interesting construct.
God made the world,
away.
and then whatever happens, happens. I leave it in Fortuna's hands.